Get up 30 minutes earlier than you normally do, and push yourself to work on the most important priorities first. This isn't just me. Research shows that your most productive hours are the first 2 to 3 hours after you wake up and get ready. This means that for peak productivity, you've got to do whatever you can do to make sure the most important work to you gets done first during that window of time.
Sleep at the same time, wake up at the same time, 7 days a week, no matter what.
Really?
Sleep is so valuable, it's so important,
Yeah,
it's so
that.
underrated. I used to think that, here's what I'm a fighter jet. I would literally walk around the house, honey, I'm a fighter jet. Fighter jet, doesn't even come down to get refueled. They're up there getting refueled, right?
Right.
We've all seen the YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Well, the fighter jet, if they leave those afterburners on too long, they just fall out of the sky, which no one had told me.
Right.
Until I fell out of the sky. I was having essential tremors and anxiety attacks and not realizing it. And as I got better at sleep, those just went away because one discipline leads to another and to another. How you do anything is how you do everything,
yeah.
right? And so that one thing that he taught me, or I learned through him, and we'd be in Vegas, we'd run a mastermind together, because now we run a mastermind together. And at 8 o'clock, and he's gone. Buddy, where are you going? I'm like,
Sleep.
yeah, I'm
in
gonna
bed by
sleep.
9 or whatever,
Yeah,
right? Or,
yeah, exactly. And he powers off 30 minutes, all his electronics before. So now I do the same thing. I power off. I don't go to bed and then do this.
yeah.
I'm powered off 30 minutes before, and my mind stops racing, and the left and right side start reconciling of the information I took in throughout the day versus the information I keep consuming, taking it, right? Until I fall asleep, and then Lord knows what happens in my brain.
Right. What time do you go to bed and wake up?
10:30. 10:30,
wow.
I'm in bed, wake up at 5:30.
Wow.
And it's been like
No matter
that
what.
for-
Even if you're in Vegas or traveling around the world or whatever.
Yeah, I'll adjust to that time zone real quickly, and 10:30 I'm in bed, 5:30 a.m. I wake up, and I go right through my rituals.
There's a very thin dividing line between success and failure when you start a business from scratch. And if you don't have enough money to pay the bills, you go the wrong side of that dividing line. And if you can somehow get enough money to pay the bills, you stay the right side of that dividing line. I've always been running faster than perhaps I should, and I have great difficulty saying no to things, so keep on taking on new things. And we've just managed to stay the right side of the dividing line over the last 50 years in business. But equally, in those early days, when you're starting a business without any financial backing, it's easy to slip the wrong side. And in fact, most entrepreneurs do slip the wrong side. And the important thing is then just to pick yourself up. And start again, and if it doesn't work at that time, keep going until you do succeed, and not to give up.
I started studying people that did more, not people that didn't do more, not people that said do less, not people that said, hey, don't be satisfied or be satisfied, not people that said, hey, be grateful for what you have. I started studying people that said and had done more, that you can do more. That's who I listen to today. I listen to the people, my friends in my life, the people I listen to, the people I talk to, the people that I follow on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram. I don't follow everybody. I follow the people that say, you can do more, dude. I follow the people that say, I am doing more. I follow the people that are actually doing something on this planet to make a difference for the better. You have to be selective. You have to give something up, okay? You cannot listen to everybody, to every voice, to every person that's quit or given up. You got to make a decision. If you have that little voice inside of you that says you can do more, you have to give attention to that voice, and you got to feed it with those that support that idea that you can do more.
There's another rule in my book, which is Rule 9. Assume that the person that you're listening to knows something you don't. Well, they do. The person you're listening to knows some things you don't. You can be sure of that. Now, whether or not you can get to them is a different matter, but if you do get to them, it's a real deal for you. That's why you want to listen to the other person's arguments, is because you're not everything you could be. You don't know the pathway forward with as much clarity as you could. And it's possible. This is one of the wonderful things that I've had the privilege of experiencing as a clinician. Because people, it's like I live inside a Dostoevsky novel as a clinician. People come in and they tell me about their lives, and I listen to them, and they tell me things that are just absolutely beyond belief, And I learn from my clients constantly. They're telling me honestly about their experience. They tell me things they wouldn't tell anyone else because I actually listen to them. But part of the reason I listen is because I'm desperate to listen. It's like there's a possibility I'm going to do something stupid in the next 5 years that's going to be like fatal. And there's some small possibility that if we have a decent discussion, that you'll tell me something that will eliminate some of my blindness so that I don't have to fall into that particular pit. And if you have a good sensitivity for the depth of the pit, then you're pretty bloody motivated to avoid it. And so, and that dialogue it's dialogic, it's dialogos, right? It's shared logos. It's the way that we redeem ourselves mutually moving forward.
You need to care about everything, and it starts with yourself. Look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what do I want to do every day for the rest of my life? Do that. I promise you can monetize that shit. If you love Alf, do an Alf blog. You collect Smurfs, Smurf it up. Whatever you need to do, do it. So many people are talking about, I can't monetize. There's a billion 70-year-old douchebags that are in control right now. But the number 2 person, that 34-year-old lady, she's gonna buy your shit. She's gonna put the advertising on your stuff. It's coming. Stop crying and just keep hustling.
If I had email, I would be inundated. I choose not to have email or ever turn a computer on. Now, all my companies are state-of-the-art, technologically advanced. If I want something printed out, it's printed out for me. But I do this out of choice. I'd rather make a phone call to you or write you a letter and communicate the way you deserve to be communicated with. And no disrespect to people on email, and I'd be so inundated, my gosh, I'd be on that computer all day long. I prefer to have that personal touch, and it seems to work. With all the companies I have that I'm quite active in, but I have great presidents running most of them. Thank God, I'm very blessed there, right, to take care of the details. But I'm still hands-on in many, many of the businesses here. And I could work better that way. And it goes down to this. Pay attention to the vital few, ignore the trivia many. If I had email, no disrespect, there'd be a lot of trivia on there I'd be answering. I try and pay attention to the vital few and ignore the trivia many.
What do you differentiate those two categories to be? Like where would, let's say, your president be and where would like the head of a sales division be? Are they on two sides of that equation?
No, what it is if it's one of my companies, you could call me directly. But people know, call me directly if you have to, but don't bother me with something someone else can handle. And they do it, it works really, really fine, works really well. But what's important would be obviously presence of company, anyone that's involved with me, either philanthropically, the main people philanthropically are the main people in my businesses, or places or countries I want to reach out to. If the head of a country will call me, I'll call them right back. Things that are very significant. Insignificant are, I'll give you an example. In my life, it has been significant. I'm hit up every month for hundreds of requests. Send me $100, send me $2 million. You have all the money, share it with me. And I don't even touch it. I can't. I'm swarmed. I do so much philanthropy now. Everyone expects that, whether it's a $2 million mortgage or, hey, I want to start a new business, send me $50,000 because you have money I don't, that people should do it. Well, that's not true. I spend millions on philanthropic work, but I do it through our foundation where it really makes sense, not where I have to go through it all myself.
So my question is, how do you begin to set up that system so that you have and I'll call it a luxury in some ways, of communicating as you see fit, when you see fit with those key decision makers?
Well, for starters, I'm the chairman of the board, okay, of the major companies. So I know detail what's going on from the chairman of the board's point of view. I also know that the people that I've hired can do what they're doing much better than I can. And I know what I need to know, and so do they. So they could pick up the phone and call me, JP, we just did this, or look what we're doing here. I also attend meetings on a regular basis to see where we're at and where we're going, and meet with marketing people, meet with promotional people, meet with our educational people, sports marketing people, to get a hands-on feel for what we're doing, where we're going, and in those really important meetings, I sit in to help make the decisions.
I want to talk a little bit about goals on the line of how do you lose 37 pounds and write a book. I'm just going to kind of give you that as an example. For 24 years of my adult life, by choice, I weighed well over 200 pounds. I say by choice because, you see, I have never accidentally eaten anything. I mean, it's always been deliberate. And when I choose to eat too much today, I have chosen to weigh too much tomorrow. You can choose to set goals and realize your potential, or you can choose not to set them. Now, if you choose not to set them, you got to understand that the consequences are not going to be good down the road. For 24 years, I was going to lose that weight. As a matter of fact, in 24 years, I lost several thousand pounds of weight. How many of you already know exactly what I'm talking about? But it wasn't until I wrote it down, put a date on it, listed the obstacles I had to overcome, identified the people, the groups, the organizations I needed to work with, spelled out a plan of action, set that time limit in there, and identified all of the benefits to me. It was only when I did that that the goal became a reality, and I lost the weight. For 10 or 15 years, I was going to write a book. You know anybody who's going to do just a whole lot of things, folks? I was going to write a book. But it wasn't until I got busy writing the book and writing the plans first before the book ever materialized. Now, if it sounds like I'm trying to sell you on having goals, how many of you are getting close already? How many of you are becoming convinced right quick like that you need to have those goals? There's no question about it. The immortal J.C. Penney many, many years ago said, give me a stock clerk with a goal, and I'll give you a man who will make history. But give me a man without a goal, and I'll give you a stock clerk. Now, the interesting thing is goals do not care who has them. Let me give you a classic example of the way they work. In 1950, a war-torn, devastated Japan, a nation which had lost an incredibly high percentage of its young men. Their cities were in ruins, they had been bombed out, but in 1950, they got together, they meaning industry and government got together and set a goal. The goal was we're going to be the #1 nation in the world during the 1950s in the production of textiles. In 1959, ladies and gentlemen, they accomplished that objective. In 1960, they set another goal. We're going to be the #1 nation in the world in the production of steel. Now, when you understand there's no iron ore in Japan of any significance, there's no coal of any significance there, we're going to be the #1 nation in the world in the production of steel, it seemed like an absurd goal, and yet they reached their objectives. They had taken all of the steps. In 1970, the Japanese set another goal. They said during the 70s, we'll be the #1 nation in the world in the production of automobiles. They missed it, folks. 1 year. It took them until 1980. In 1980, they set another goal. And this time their goal was, we're going to be the #1 nation in the world in the production of computers and electronics. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, you absolutely must have those goals.
It's hugely important to me to maintain a certain energy. It's like, it's healing, it's loving, it's kind, and I learned really young that my energy was infectious. Right? So when I come into the studio, long after I leave, the energy that I bring is still going to be here, and then people are going to take it home and they're going to affect their families with it. So for me, it's hugely important to maintain just positive, loving energy.
Everyone in this room knows how to create. You're not a manager of your life, you're a creator of your life, or you wouldn't be in this room. How do you create your life? You get hungry for something, don't you? Who has done something in your life that once seemed difficult or impossible, and now it's part of your life? Who's got something in your life in this area? Say I. How did you do it? You created it 3 ways. Number 1, you decided there's something you wanted so bad that you unleashed all your desire. You became obsessed with it. If it was a business or a car or a relationship or a transformation in your body, if there's something you once envisioned and now it's real, it's because you didn't just envision it, you brought so much emotion to it that now it's in your life. It was once a dream, it was once a goal, and now it's in your life. How many have something like that in your life now? Say I. You may take it for granted now, hopefully not, but it was once just a vision. It may have seemed impossible at one time. So how did you do it? You started with a concrete vision of what you wanted, and you focused on it continuously, didn't you? Wherever focus goes, energy flows. You envisioned something, you got clear about it, and then you started thinking about all the reasons why you wanted it. You got excited about it. Said, this is what's next for me now. I want this. You may have dreamed about it, thought about it, talked about it. But when you focus on something continuously, something magical happens. You get insights, don't you? You overhear a conversation and you hear something you wouldn't have heard if you didn't have that outcome or goal that you wanted so badly. Who's ever come up with something, obsessed about it, didn't even know how to do it, and it just happened and it came together? Who's had that experience? Say I. So why don't we tap into that power now for your business and life?
I mean, I think the difference between someone who ultimately is successful and someone who isn't is just getting up and trying again. And I feel like I've seen that in my life, again, to other people, is that things get hard and people try again, and things get hard and people might try again, might not, and then things get hard and they just don't try again. And giving up can't be an option. And I think that goes back to the core of making sure that whatever it is you're doing is something that you love to do, something that you enjoy, something that maybe if you didn't even get paid, would you still do it? And I think that's what pulls you through those times ultimately, but and that's what keeps you coming back for more, and that's what that passion and that love for what it is that you do is what keeps you going.
So would you say your resilience and that persistence is because you love what you do so much, or is there something about your parents or anything in your upbringing? Do you think it's...
I mean, I think that genetically I have I'm determined, because my dad was very much like that, for sure, very persistent and determined. But I think it's also because I found something that I love to do. And there's plenty of other stuff that I've done that I didn't keep doing. I mean, I didn't keep playing basketball, let's face it. But I kept racing. And so it was about finding that, I feel. Mm-hmm. And finding it really young. I'm very fortunate that I found it really young. And I tell everyone, young or old, is just, if you could do anything in the world, what would you do? Well, why can't you do that then? At least start, at least just try to make an effort at doing it. You're not gonna get there within one shot, but you just gotta take baby steps and opportunities along the way. And I feel like, especially like people get out of college and they have this idea of what they wanna do and they're holding out until they get it. Just get going, just get working and get the experience and start working your way there.
One of the things that's really interesting about the Old Testament is that, and the Jews in the Old Testament, is that they don't take the path of Cain. Every time they're walloped by God, which is like fairly frequently, they say, we must have done something wrong and we have to set ourselves right. And that's an unbelievably heroic attitude, because that's the alternative to cursing fate. It's like you take the responsibility for failure onto yourself. And you think, well, if I just had my act together a little bit more, if I took advantage of every opportunity that was put in front of me, if I wasn't resentful and bitter, then I could have done something that would have tilted the situation in a different direction. And like, that's almost inevitably true. Dostoevsky, I think, said something like, every man is responsible for everything that happens to him and everything that happens to everyone else. And that's, it's a crazy statement, right? It's a crazy statement. And he was a pretty extreme person in many, many ways. But there's a level at which that's metaphysically true, because what happens is that it's failure to act often that's the most catastrophic. It's to not do the right thing when the situation presents itself. And it's very specific. You're constantly in situations where you could do the right thing if you were willing to take a risk that's actually of relatively moderate size. And you know that you could take the risk, and you know that you should take the risk, and you don't. And that happens to people all the time. And then what happens is the thing that they didn't oppose grows a little bit, and they shrink a little bit. And that starts a loop, hey?
Problem is, if you have the greatest hammer and the greatest screwdriver and the greatest wrench, the greatest, in front of you, if you don't use them properly, you will lose.
Right.
If there's a nail that I have to put in that ground, but I take the wrench and I hit it when the hammer was right there, it still comes down to the practitioner. And you have to be good at your craft, and you have to love if you don't love sales, if you don't love it, you have no chance. Because it's so hard, it's so painful, there's so much rejection.
Right.
So those are the things I think about.
So technology is clearly an enabler, as you've just said there, though.
Yes.
The person is equally important. And
More important.
Right, and going
More
back
important.
to
I just apologize for jumping in, but let me make it perfectly straight. If I go play Roger Federer right now in tennis, and I have the greatest tennis racket ever made, like taken from the Mars's new resources, and he took a John McEnroe 1974 tennis racket, he would whip my ass. Like, I'm crushing salespeople that have every Salesforce, every one of your competitors, 37 features, upgraded, went to every pro conference, watching this. I will beat their ass in sales every day of the week. Pure talent.
What if you're happy with your job, but you don't like the place it's in? Man, the honest answer for me is I would leave. Like, I'm so hell-bent, like, I know what I want to do with my life. It is so clear to me that I just wouldn't let anything stop me. And that's why I left Tacoma. I love Tacoma. I was not unhappy in Tacoma at all. Like, people always think I left for the weather or whatever. I didn't. I didn't even think about the weather as a kid. It was just all I knew. I left because I wanted to be in a bigger city that had more opportunity, and that was it. And so I was moving towards something. And I think that there are two things that motivate people: moving away from something. So, I don't want that to happen. I don't want, take longevity. I don't want to die. That's moving away from something. I want to live forever. That's moving towards something. So living forever for me is about all the things that I could do and all that. So I'm moving towards that. I'm not moving away from a fear of death. That here, the only perspective I can give you is that if I ever had a sense of I can't go as far as I want to go in this place, I would be gone in a heartbeat.
I want you to start seeing something bigger. I know you're all successful. I'm talking about something really big for your life. And in order to do that, you have to answer this question. What do you really want? Now, I'm not talking about something small. I'm not talking about a little haiku. I'm not talking about renovating your kitchen. I'm not talking about signing on 10 new customers this month. I'm talking about what you really want. 3 years ago, I was a lawyer and a business coach working with private clients and big corporations all over the country. And I came to a seminar, just like this one. A big leadership seminar, and I went there with my husband. We're both business owners, and I went because I wanted to be more successful. And I went because I wanted to make even more money than I already did. And I was sitting exactly where you are. In fact, I was sitting about, 15 rows back, right where that woman with her hand on her thing, you? Yeah, she's like, hi. Was sitting, and I was taking notes, and I'm like, okay, I'm here to make more money. And then all of a sudden, she walked on stage. That is Martha Beck. She writes a column for Oprah Winfrey. She travels around the country speaking. She's a best-selling author. And when she walked on stage, I literally stopped listening. Please keep listening to me right now. And it hit me. I said, I want to be doing that. I'm ready for a bigger stage. That's it. And what's so interesting about when you answer that question is that you don't answer it up here. You answer it here. That's how you see something bigger for yourself. You guys are really cute because everybody's like, I don't see it. I don't see anything for myself right now. Now I'm just confused. I thought I knew what I wanted. And now, Mel, I'm not really sure. And right now, the economy is so bad. It's so bad that even if you're successful, I know sometimes I feel embarrassed talking about my success around some of my friends because I know that they're really struggling. And I get calls every day into the radio show, people saying, I've got this great idea, but I just don't know if it's the right time. And you know what I say to them? I say, yeah, you're right. The recession, it's huge, you should wait. Those dreams, yeah, put them on hold. That's right. You should stay in that job you can't stand just a little bit longer. You get college bills to pay. What you're doing, it's fine. You're busy, right? That guy you're dating, he's good enough for you. But for the people in this room, baloney. That's right. You know exactly what you want. And the only thing that you need to do is to admit it. Now, this may sound weird because I know most of you came in here because you're like, I know what I want. I'm here at Success to try to figure it out. I'm talking about something bigger. much bigger. I'll admit to you what it is that I'm up to. And the truth is, it's embarrassing. Because when you lock on to something way bigger than where you're at, it is downright embarrassing to tell people. Because you're not there yet. But I mean, at this rate, I've already admitted to you that I stalked Martha Beck and that I brought a haiku to the best, lit agent in the country, so I got nothing to lose at this point. So this is what I want. Well, not him. I'm married. I want what he's got. I want 600 radio stations. I want 2 million listeners. And I could certainly deal with the $400 million salary. In fact, if I got it, I'd renovate everybody's kitchen. And the thing is, though, that's so interesting about this is that I didn't pick him. I mean, I'm not looking to become a cigar-smoking, conservative, political guy that stirs the pot and makes everybody all mad. I'm the liberal lifestyle gal that's trying to help people out. But what I want to do is I want to use radio to entertain people and help them achieve their dreams. And when I really think about it, he's the one that's in the front. I want to not only reach what he's doing, I want to surpass him. I mean, do you think I like it when my friends come over to my office in Boston at my house and they're like, what is that guy doing on your board? No, it's embarrassing. When you admit the big thing that you're up to, it's embarrassing. I have 40 stations. He's got 600. There's a big gap. So admitting where you want to get to is embarrassing, but you got to do it.
I tell you, life is interesting. Life's a journey. See this phone here? Let's say that I want to go to the phone, right? And I start from over here. Now, to get to the phone, it's not like I'm going to start meditating and going hum, right? And float across the air, right? It's not going to work. It's not like I'm going to go hum and woo, it's not going to work. So I have to take one step at a time, one step at a time, one step at a time. You can only take one step at a time. I don't care how big your step is, it's only one step at a time. You can't do 2 steps in one. You understand? So it's like one step at a time. And you take steps in this direction, you take steps in that direction, sort of get lost along the way, and sometimes you fall down. Now, to illustrate my point, I'm going to jump off the table, do a back twist, and land on the floor. Okay? Is that cool? Are you ready? Oh, there's a clock there? Okay, can you move the clock for a second, please? Beautiful, beautiful. All right. You ready? So, are you guys ready? Just let me know when you're ready. Are you ready? Okay, ready? 1, 2. I'm joking, man. Are you serious? Just put the clock back there. If I did that, I'll break my arm or something. You know what I mean? But honestly, along the way, you might fall down like this. Ready? Right? Hello! Right. So what do you do when you fall down? Get back up. Everybody knows to get back up, because if I start walking, I'm not going to get anywhere. But I tell you, there are some times in life where you fall down and you feel like you don't have the strength to get back up. You sort of put a mask on your face when you come to school and pretend that everything's okay when it's not, and you go home and lay in your bed when no one's looking at you, when you don't have to impress anybody, and you're yourself. And fear comes in. You know the fear that you have as soon as you walk into the doors of your house. Maybe there's a broken home. Maybe you have doubt in your life. Maybe you don't know for sure what's going to be happening in the future, and it scares you. Maybe you're worried about what people think of you, what people say about you. Just that fear paralyzes you. And I just want to ask you today, do you think you have hope? Because I tell you, I'm down here, face down, and I have no arms, no legs. It should be impossible for me to get back up. I mean, you go home and tie the legs and arms of your brothers and sisters and like push them down and see how long it's going to take them to get back up. You know what I mean? you can tell him that you'll see him tomorrow, you know what I mean? But this is the thing. It should be impossible for me to get back up, but it's not. You see, I will try 100 times to get up, and if I fail 100 times, if I fail and I give up, do you think that I'm ever going to get up? No. But if I fail, I try again and again and again. For as long as I try, there's always that chance of getting up. Does that make sense? And it's not the end until you've given up. And just the fact that you're here should persuade you that you have another chance to get back up. There's still hope. I'm not here today to tell you that I understand your pain. I don't know how it feels to be abused. I don't know how it feels to feel, quote, fat and you've got an eating disorder. I don't know how it feels to have a broken home. I don't know how it feels. But I know how it feels to have a broken heart. And I know how it feels to be alone. And I want you to know that I found my strength in Jesus Christ, and you're going to find your strength in whatever you find it in. But I just want you to know that it's not the end. It matters how you're going to finish. Are you going to finish strong? And you will find that strength to get back up like this.
The next stage is, is to be a great delegator and not try to do everything yourself. Try to find people who are better than you all the time. Try to find people who are better than you to put you out of business effectively. So, whatever you're spending all your day doing, try to find someone who's better than you to do that, to replace you at it, so that you can go off and think about the next big picture. An entrepreneur is not a manager. I mean, an entrepreneur is somebody who is great at conceiving ideas, starting ideas, building ideas, but then handing over to really good managers to manage the businesses. The moment you've got more than one business, you can't be hands-on doing everything.
Think about vulnerability as a dark emotion. There are a lot of people who talk about positive emotions, negative emotions, dark emotions, light emotions. We think of vulnerability as a dark emotion. We think of it as the core of fear and shame and grief and disappointment, uncertainty, things that we do not want to feel, right? Things that I don't want to be vulnerable because that means I'm afraid. That means I'm uncertain. That means I'm at risk. I'm exposed. I'm in grief. So what we do is we armor up and we say, I do not want to slip into these dark emotions. I will not let myself be vulnerable. But here's what I learned from the research and certainly put into motion in my own life that was the most life-changing, is that vulnerability is the center of difficult emotion. But it's also the birthplace of every positive emotion that we need in our lives. Love, belonging, joy, empathy. How many of you would agree that we're in a serious empathy deficit in our culture today? Totally, right? No vulnerability, no empathy. In a culture where people are afraid to be vulnerable, you can't have empathy. Empathy is not a default response. If you share something with me that's difficult, in order for me to be truly empathic, I have to step into what you're feeling. And that's vulnerable. So there can be no empathy without vulnerability. Why do you think, in that example that I used a while ago, daughter comes home and says, tears, no one sat with me at lunch today. They made fun of what I was wearing. So-and-so won't talk to me. They poured my books out of my locker. And the response back is, I told you, I bought you all those cute jeans. Why aren't you wearing those jeans? And pull your hair back. Is that an empathic response? No, it's a shaming response. Could that shaming response be could a mother who absolutely adores her child respond with that shaming response? Please say yes, don't kid yourself. I mean, come on. If you're a parent sitting in here, then you sure as hell know the answer to that is yes. But why? Why did that happen? Where was the access to vulnerability? Where was empathy? You can't access empathy if you're not willing to be vulnerable. So if my daughter comes home and tells that to me, guess what I have to do? I have to reactivate that sweaty palmed 7th grader who lives inside me. And I have to go, oh God, that's so hard. I'm so sorry. That's happened to me. That's happened to me when I was in middle school, and it's happened to me last week. Let's talk about it. But you can't get there without vulnerability. You can't fake empathy. Innovation and creativity, born of vulnerability. This is my favorite part. I talked about this I did another TED Talk this year in Long Beach, and I told the story that during 2011 and even this year, after the big TEDx Houston talk went viral, the big calls came from Fortune 500 companies. Oh my God, we loved your TED Talk. It was great. Please come talk to all of our senior leaders. And it's like, okay, what do you want to talk about? Like, we don't care. Just come and talk to us. Just if you could ixnay the shame and vulnerability talk. Every single conversation, barring maybe 10%. I was like, well, what do you mean? Well, we love, you're funny. You have this great research. I think there's a real fit with what we do. We don't really do, that kind of stuff around here. So if you could not mention vulnerability and shame. So just for fun, for grins, I would say, okay, so what would you like me to talk about? Yeah, fourth quarter earnings, like frickin' don't even balance my checkbook. I'm not gonna talk about that. So what do you want me to talk about? Well, the big issue, creativity and innovation. And change, we're going through a lot of change. Okay, so vulnerability is the birthplace of creativity, innovation, change. And the reason that crisis is happening is because you're not talking about vulnerability. Imagine creativity and innovation without vulnerability. I'm asking you for a work product that has never been made before, that's completely innovative. I need you to be creative, and I need you to present it to a group of people who are half of them are gonna think it's stupid and not understand it. No vulnerability there.
It's our intention. Our intention is everything. Nothing happens on this planet without it. Not one single thing has ever been accomplished without intention.
Let me share with you a true story out of my notebook of life. A number of years ago, got an incredible letter from a gentleman in Toronto with a substantial check in it. He said, my friend Steve Walker is following the wrong role model. He's working himself to death, his family is falling apart, his health is in danger, and he's modeling himself out of his boss, and he trusts you and respects you. If you will give us 1 hour, I will fly him to Dallas and give you this check. Wouldn't you love to have a friend like that? I sent the check back and I said, come on down. Steve and I had quite a little talk. And in our talk, I asked him why he had such a role model. What about this man that made him so completely important in his life? And he said, well, he's the most successful man I have ever known. And I said, well, Steve, what do you call success? Now, it took several minutes for him to go down the list. But the interesting thing is, though they're not in the same order that I have put them, or we list them now, these are the 8 things that he said he really considered to be successful. If a man was happy and healthy and at least reasonably prosperous and secure, if he had friends and peace of mind and good family relationship and the hope that the future is going to be better, he said, I'd consider that man as successful. Now I'm going to really encourage you to take some notes right here. And all I want you to do, and you'll be the only one that'll see it, somewhere right as I go down the list, write whether you get a plus on that one or a minus on that one. You'll be the only one to see it, but it might be an eye-opener. You see, most people never dare to evaluate really where they are. And you got to know where you are before you can really determine your chances of getting what you really want out of life. And so I said to Steve, I said, I understand that your boss is very important to you. You consider him to be successful. When he finally got through with the identification, as I said earlier, these were the 8 things that he said, I think that's important for success, to measure success. I said, well, Steve, let me ask you now, as far as happy is concerned, tell me, how happy is your boss? He said, oh, I don't think he's happy at all. I said, why not? He said, well, I've never heard him laugh, and he seldom smiles, and besides that, he's got ulcers. I said, well, do I give him a plus or a minus? He said, oh, you give him a minus. Please grade yourself as we go. This is so important for you. Then I said, that also tells me something about his health if he's got those ulcers. Do I give him a plus or a minus? He said, you give him a minus. I said, that also says something, Steve, about his peace of mind, because you don't get ulcers because of what you eat, but what's eating you. I said, do we give him a plus or a minus? He said, we give him a minus. I said, Steve, I've asked you one question about what success is, what balance is, what's important to you. One question, and your boss comes up with 3 minuses. I said, tell me how prosperous he is. He said, man, he's got money running out of his ears, and he's getting more every day. I said, we give him a plus on that one, don't we? He said, we sure do. I said, how secure is your boss? He said, well, he's as secure as money can make you. And I said, well, Steve, let me ask you, did you read where 2 billionaire brothers here in Dallas went bankrupt? I said, how does your boss compare? Oh, man, he doesn't have that kind of money. Did you read where our ex-governor was worth $100 million at one point? He's now bankrupt. How does your boss compare? Oh, he doesn't have that kind of money. Now, understand, Steve equated security with corporate position and bucks in the bank. So I said, well, Steve, let me ask you, would we give your boss a plus or a minus or just a question mark on that? He said, let's be generous and give him a question mark. I said, how many friends does your boss have? I hope you're marking these for you. How many friends, real friends, does your boss have? He said, I don't think he's got any. I'm not his friend. I just happen to admire the guy. To tell you the truth, he's somewhat of a jerk. And I said, okay, we give him a minus on that one. I said, tell me about his family. And he said, well, his wife's divorcing him. Well, that one's easy to answer. I said, how much hope does he have for the future? He said, well, before I started talking to you, I thought he had a lot. But right now, I don't think he's got any. Why did that statement come forth? Because for the first time, he had evaluated it. That's what we need to do, evaluate where we are. Are we investing our time properly, using our resources properly? What will the end results be? Well, then I said to Steve, when that was over, we give him the minus there. I said, Steve, of the 8 things that you consider marks of success, he gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minuses. He gets 1 plus and 1 question mark. I asked Steve a question. I'm going to ask you the same question. Steve, would you swap places with your boss right now, knowing what you know? He looked at me kind of stunned. He slowly rose to his feet and said, no, I wouldn't. Would you?
I don't watch news. I make news. See the shift? You see the slight shift? Don't watch the news. Decide when you leave here today to make the news. Right? You don't read the newspaper, you write newspaper articles. You don't read books. Yeah, read them, but learn to write them. And you don't need to spend a lifetime writing a book. This was 3 hours. Okay, we sold 40,000 copies of this one book, and it was self-published. It's never, ever, ever been in a bookstore. A guy writes me, he says, man, you got misspelled words all in that book. I'm like, yeah, so what, where are they? 123, 128, 134, 165, 120. I'm like, yeah. And bad grammar too. I'm like, yeah, what's your point, dude? What's your point, man? Why you keep telling me that? He's like, because man, you got misspelled words in a book. It's a bestseller. Okay, so it ain't best written, okay? You know what now this word, just so nobody I don't want you to think that that's a cuss word. The word So look it up in the dictionary. It means a complainer, a whiner, an excuse maker. I wear a little band on my pin here, on my wrist here. It's a little black band, and it says, champions dominate. And on the other side, don't be a little bitch. That's right. Because I don't need it. I need to get rid of the whiners, the excuse makers. Oh my God, it's the market. It's the market. Oh my God, prices. Oh, inventory. Okay, 9 months ago, there's too much inventory. Now, too little inventory. Human beings have so many excuses, it's unbelievable. You know why? Because you watch the news too much. Because you've agreed to receive news, not make news.